Oh man, this is going to be an interesting, probably feature length Nutnfancy KRV. That is knife review video. And I know I've got lots of KRVs out there, and I would like to think that most of them are interesting. This one may take it to a whole new level though if you're interested in the subject matter. And that subject matter is sitting right there on the table, one of the most iconic, perhaps even legendary, at least in some people's minds, tactical folders of all time. That is a Chris Reeve Sebenza. Today we'll be looking at the large Sebenza 21, that model. You have had the unfortunate occurrence of clicking on a thorough, detailed, objective, and very honest Nutnfancy tabletop review on the Sebenza knife. Now, if you're looking for a 5-minute review, you're going to have to go somewhere else, dude. Go to the manufacturer's website, just take in all the information. You want size, weight, all that stuff, some of which I'll give you. It's all there. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of all types of reviews on this knife. However, I'm doing this for my friends across the world, my subscribers to the Nutnfancy project, who have bugged me for well over 4.5 years to do it. It's August 2012 when I've decided to go ahead and knock out a review on the Sebenza. I got to lay down some ground rules too, and one of them is you're going to be looking at this knife for a long time. I'm not going in front of the camera. I don't want to. Hate it. You're going to be looking at the knife, and we're going to do some very interesting discussion. It will be riveting to you. I really think so. If you're a tactical knife aficionado, a user, I think what I will say to you, both pro and con on the Sebenza, will intrigue you. But ground rules. First, people come to a Nutnfancy review because the way I do reviews. One of the very first. But even here, well into year 4, I'm known for my honesty. My immunity to groupthink. I just don't go along with it. I have great logic, continuity, and my thought processes when I'm talking about philosophies and such. Guys who've been following TNP know that for a long time. That's going to be very important when we discuss the Sebenza. You'll see what I mean as we progress. I'm not a fanboy of the Sebenza, and I'm not an enemy of the Sebenza. Not really. I'm kind of in between. I'm going to say some pro and cons on the knife. If you're a Sebenza fan, you're going to like a lot of what I say. And some of what I say, you won't like. I'll piss everybody off equally. But that's what you get when you get honesty. And we're not just going to talk about knife details in this video either. To me, that would be interesting. But the Sebenza really needs more. It's earned it. I used the words iconic and legendary, and I think they're applicable in a lot of ways to the Sebenza. It is extremely successful within the knife community. Love it or hate it, you have to give it that. And I'm going to address that because we're going to talk about marketing and we're going to talk about human behavior, stuff I've talked about lots and lots, specifically in my philosophy video in 2008. 2 kinds of cool. It's really going to play with a Sebenza 21. So that's a ground rule. It's going to be a Nutnfancy standard review. Not going to go parlaying the groupthink or touting this, touting that. I just don't play that game. That's not to say that there aren't some features and things that Sebenza does that I am just not totally stoked on. There are. But when we get to price, the plot is really going to thicken. And I'm going to lay down some heat on the Sebenza. Okay? And if you like that, great. If you don't, but that is honest. I have to do it. You have to understand 2 kinds of cool to understand the Sebenza. And the get out of jail free card is if you weigh the second kind of cool with a Sebenza, then it's a kind of get out of jail free card here in the Nutnfancy project at least. It should be culturally. That if guys say, well, I love the Sebenza just because I love it. I know it's expensive. I know it's a $410 knife, but I don't care. It just turns me on. I love it, love it, love it, love it. As long as they say it's not the best folding tactical knife in the world for the money, then they're all over the second kind of cool, and that's off limits to us. We cannot criticize it. Otherwise, they're going to criticize something that you have that doesn't make sense to them. We've been down this road before. This is a high-end carry knife. Go look at that philosophy video to understand what that's all about. And that is a philosophy I've thrown out in 2012. It's completely valid. Some people have no problem at all spending $300 or more on a folding knife and using it in an everyday carry role, perhaps in a tactical life defensive role, HEC. And you need to understand that too, because some of what I'm going to say philosophically when we talk about POUs will apply to HEC. You got to understand the cost of United States production. You know, some people really throw that out there. Well, it's made in Taiwan. It's made in China. I only buy U.S. produced knives. Well, you're looking at a U.S. produced knife, and it costs $410. Now, that being said, I'm going to show you some competitive options. I told you this is feature length, dude. We're going to have an interesting discussion. I'm going to throw you some competitive options, some of which are made in the United States. They don't cost anything near $410. They provide all the first kind of cool, if not more, as the Sebenza. So that's not to say that a knife, just because it's produced in the United States, has to be $400. We see from many manufacturers that it doesn't. But if you go to this price point or this quality level, attention to detail, it will drive cost. It has to. There you go. Simple elegance. Absolutely, the Sebenza. I want to jump into philosophies of use, and I'll tell you what, this is going to be another interesting discussion. And this will be unlike any review you will ever see on this knife. I can guarantee you that. And the first thing I'm going to talk about as philosophy of use is something I've never thrown out before, and I'm going to do it with a Sebenza, and that is an admiration knife. That's right, an admiration knife. What do you mean? I mean, if you buy this knife, you show it to anybody who's remotely familiar with the tactical folding knife community. I guess that's a pretty small audience, truth be told. But let's say they're not even folding knife guys. Let's say they're a tactical guy and you go to a shooting range, you go to, I don't know, shooting course, this or that, and you pull out a Sebenza to do this task. I guarantee you people are going to notice, most of them will, and they'll say Sebenza, and that says a lot about you as an individual. It's an admiration knife, and you are dovetailing yourself into the admiration you would get. Because a lot of people won't admit that they've always secretly coveted a Sebenza. But for whatever reason, maybe it's price, probably, they haven't bought it. They can't afford it, but they still love the knife. If they're honest with themselves, they'd say, yeah, I love it. You pull it out, you get admiration. You know, you get kudo points, cool points from your buddies for having the knife. That's one distinct philosophy of use for Sebenza 21. I guess I'm going to show you the knife as we're talking. We're going to talk about all the details. Don't worry, I'll get around to that. Trust me, dudes. I'll get to all that. On the flip side of that admiration philosophy of use, I'm going to say, get this, douche knife. What? Fancy. How can you say douche knife for a Sebenza? Well, because it's a polarizing knife, guys. For as many people who love the Sebenza, there's a lot of people that hate it. Not the knife itself, not the quality, not what it represents, because you really can't fault that. But they hate what it stands for. They hate the fact that a $410 knife is a folding knife, and it really doesn't offer any more utility than their, I don't know, $33 knife made in China. And they take issue with it. They have a heartburn with it. And so maybe at the shooting range, if you pull out your Sebenza, they'll look at you as a douche. How's that for a philosophy of use? The knife cuts both ways, dudes. I'm telling you, it does. There's guys out there, you pull out a Sebenza guy, you paid $410 for that, and you could have got a freaking Glock. Okay, maybe a used Glock. You see what I'm saying? The interesting part is that the Sebenza is even worthy of this discussion. It really is fascinating. Because if you go to my video, High-End Carry, I talk about how pricing is part of marketing in the knife world. Heck, it's part of marketing in any world where we're buying an object. Cars, clothing, electronic goods, watches for sure. Because what happens when you make a widget and you price that widget well above the competition, an interesting phenomena happens. And that phenomenon goes something like this, as the way I see it. They will say, this knife is extremely expensive. It's got to be special. It's got to be. There's no way this knife would be charged unless it was just head and shoulders above everything else. In this case, the knife world. Maybe it's the watch world. And so this phenomena gathers momentum. and what establishes in the consumer's mind, and you and I are the consumers, is a perception. A perception of supreme, almost heavenly quality, a perception of specialness. And thus, as a marketer of your thing, in this case it's a knife, people are excited about it. And really, that price is a cool factor all its own. Hey, how much is your watch? $6,000, Nutnfancy. Holy cow, that watch must really rock. Yeah, it does. It does this, and it does that, and does this, and does that. Really, that's cool. Does it tell time? Yeah, totally. It misses 1 second per month. I was like, mine does too. $30. See what I'm saying? But that marketing, when we talk about CRK, was supremely executed, was executed with great consistency, and to their credit, I will say. Just like I said in the HEC video, I say kudos to manufacturers that do this. Benchmade does it to a large degree. Now, granted, usually they don't go that high, but their knives are expensive. Spyderco knives sometimes are very expensive. They get on up there, dudes. So I'm talking about the entire knife community, and I'm not faulting it. I'm just pointing out a reality of marketing and human perception. You have to understand that when you talk about the Sebenza 21. And then that phenomena becomes even more complex and more interesting as the years go by. Introduced in 1990, now we have, 22 years of the Sebenza? Now what it's become is you have many, many fans of the Sebenza who have purchased one, either on the used market, the new market. Do you think for any second that they're going to say, you know what, I wasted my money? Some might. Some might grab it and they go, this isn't everything I thought it'd be. And I'm disappointed. But it is another interesting human behavior to defend our purchases. It just is. It's all human. I've done it before. You've done it before. It's human. We have to fight against it and be honest with ourselves. And so a guy who goes out and forks out $410 for a Sebenza 21, I guarantee you is going to be apt to defend his purchase in the forums, in comments, on his phone, in Twitter. I don't know where he's doing it. But he doesn't want to admit that he was bamboozled. Get it? Interesting, isn't it? It's not just Sebenza, it's everything we could put it on. And it ain't just all kinds of manufacturers do that. Microtech does that too. And I say good on them. Now granted, a lot of these knives are expensive to produce. They're paying a U.S. labor force to do it using U.S. materials. That's expensive. Man, it's just fascinating. Cuts both ways though. Admiration knife, douche knife. Two philosophies of use. Here comes another one, moving along. How about commodity? Because CRK, that is Chris Reeve and company, have been so successful at convincing the entire knife world that this is the standard for tactical blades, this is a commodity and it holds its value. That is a good thing. I'm not leveling any criticism at all. It is an observation. You buy a Sebenza 21, you don't like it, you can sell it. No problem. No problem. You'll sell it quickly for most of what you've paid for it. So the upside on a manufacturer like Chris Reeve, who is outstanding at controlling his brand, is it takes care of the people who own his knives. He doesn't flood the market with them. They are each handcrafted here in the United States of America. He keeps the price where it's always been, up in the stratosphere. And when you need to turn that knife, it becomes a commodity. Pretty much scoring most of what you've paid for it. And there aren't a ton of knives that you could say that about. Now, some factory knives, to be honest, gain in value. They're discontinued and the market finally realizes how awesome they are. They'll go up in price. It's a commodity though, and it's very few knives I would tack that philosophy of use on. But it's almost like gold and silver. Unless the bottom falls out on the reputation of the Sebenza. What's the future hold? I don't know. From all looks, it's going to remain very solid. 22 years going. Man, this is fun. This is a fun review for me. I'll tell you what though, to be deadly honest, I was reticent about reviewing the Sebenza. It's been 4.5 years and I never did it. I could have done it in 2008. Easy. The reason is because it's so expensive. And I don't know if it serves the majority of my subscribers well. But here we are, 2012. Next philosophy of use, tactical. It's an iconic tactical folding knife, Nutnfancy. What do you say about that? I say yes. It is a tactical knife. It will fill that philosophy of use totally. And you're going to see when we look at the details of why I say that is. Now, I don't think it's groundbreaking. There's a lot better tactical knives in 2012 and beyond than the Sebenza. We're talking about tactical knives. At least when I do a review on it, I want reach, I want speed, I want strength, and I want traction. That's what I want out of a tactical knife. We get all of that in the Sebenza, but there's a lot of other designs that will beat it. I'm going to show you in competitive options exactly what I'm talking about. Some will be worse, a lot worse than this. Tactical blade, though, you can defend your life with it. Soldier knife, oh yeah, absolutely. Would you want to go trekking around Afghanistan with this clipped to your LBE? No. Here's why, by the way. Because my buddies, like Inadvertent Smell, who, by the way, is fresh back from Afghanistan, safe and sound, thank you very much, says if you have any good gear, it's going to get ripped off, man. Can you imagine if you have a Sebenza clipped to your LBE? You're going to turn around and, dudes, it's going to be gone. Hey, man, did you see where my knife went? No, dude, I didn't see anything. You know how that goes. All the guys that served in the military be nodding their heads like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Lost a Leatherman that way. No, you don't clip a Sebenza there. Maybe a Chinese Sebenza. Maybe. Next one, everyday carry knife. You guys having fun? The knife for me in the large format is too big for EDC. A lot of guys love it. I would recommend the small Sebenza, again, if you're willing to pay the price, which incidentally will be about $350, I think, for the Sebenza small. EDC, yeah, totally could function that. I'll leave it at that. How about this? Art piece. Distinct and separate philosophy of use. I've never used it before. I'm going to throw it out there starting with a Sebenza, and this is not the best version to show you about what I mean when I talk about art piece, because this is a plain bead blasted titanium handles. 6AL4V titanium. It's good looking, but it's not artistic. But there have been over the years many shining examples of Sebenza art. Mammoth, wood, ivory inlays in the handles, all types of designs, and that makes them extremely collectible, extremely expensive, but art. And I will tell you this, there's guys out there, and gals probably, who collect knives for no other reason than art. And to me, I find that fascinating. I don't. I like that it's aesthetic. I really, really do love that it's aesthetic, but I don't do it just for art. It has to be functional for me. Finally, in philosophy of use, gift. Can you imagine Christmas Day and you open up a Sebenza 21 from your wife? But Nutnfancy, I'd rather have 3 other knives. I know. Well, trust me, we'll get to that discussion. I can hear you guys shouting through the camera. But come on, admit it. If you got a Sebenza, you didn't pay for it, it's a gift, you tell me you would not like to get it? Come on, dudes. The only real thing that we can level against Sebenza is price. Really, in pretty much every other aspect, it nears perfection. There are some things that I would like to see better, but pretty close. What a gift item. An expensive gift item, but like I've said with some other blades, like the Line Steel SR1, if it's a special occasion, maybe a $400 knife is getting off cheap. At least you're not buying a car. That's it, philosophy of use. Size and weight. 4.8 ounces. 4.8 ounces. The large features a 3.625 inch S35 VN steel blade. First on the weight. I'm never super impressed with titanium knives as far as their weight goes. They are a little bit lighter than stainless steel knives. Maybe, I wouldn't say a little, moderately lighter is the right word. But they're not like aluminum knives. Aluminum knives are a lot lighter. You know, like that Line Steel SR1, the titanium 6.5, the aluminum about 5.6 ounces. That being said, I think the weight on the Sebenza is outstanding. 4.8 ounces for basically a 3.6 inch blade is in the ballpark. And it set standards back in 1990. Okay, when there weren't really a lot of other tactical knives out there. Now I'm talking 1990 when the original Sebenza came out. And by the way, Sebenza harkens back to the word work in Africa. I guess I didn't know this, but Chris Reeve harkens back his roots to Africa. That's cool. 1996, regular Sebenza came out. 2000, the classic was issued. In 2008, 21 for the 21st year of manufacture, the Sebenza 21 became a reality. Early in its history, though, it was groundbreaking in terms of pretty much everything. And a lot of what the Sebenza guys will say is they'll say, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The design was got right early on, and I will agree with that. To a point. The point is we have such competition in 2012 and beyond. Such competition. I review them all the time. Outstanding knife designs that meet or beat this weight, that meet or beat its capabilities, and whatever practical or real world philosophy of use you want to throw at. I'm talking like EDC or tactical, that are cheaper. Okay, so time has marched on. The design has been pretty much made the same way with some small variations. But that it was got right for the most part. 4.8 ounces, 3.7 inch blade, size and weight. Balance and feel are outstanding on the Sebenza 21. Just outstanding. That takes us to blade, steel, all that other stuff. First off, the blade shape is just, in my mind, perfection. Perfection. I love the blade shape of the Sebenza. It's been copied the world over. It has, and for good reason. It is a classic, gorgeous, functional drop point with a perfect stone-washed finish on it. It really is. I told you I was going to talk details. When we look at the details of Sebenza, we got to give credit where credit is due. It's just, it is done to perfection. The only criticism you can really place on it, again, is value. The blade, just perfect. The tip, check it. Precise, thin ground, moderate, not supreme strength. But I like that because it's going to penetrate well. We talk about a tactical philosophy of use. There you go. This is a knife that will stab quite well, just like that Microtech SOCOM I was showing you that I've thumped on a lot. This knife is going to be just like it. This has a high hollow ground in it. Very thin and perfectly executed relief edge. Hair shaving sharp out of box is a Sebenza. Just perfect. I thought you liked full flat grind all the time, Nutnfancy. I do. Not always though. Just depends. And the way this is executed with its incredibly keen edge, its ease of resharpening, because the relief edge is not dicked up out of the box. You have a flat for a consistent angle sharpener like the EPA. It's going to be easy to maintain. Absolutely. I love the blade. Good belly in it. Good belly. I said it's simple elegance, the Sebenza. It really is. Look at the blade, for instance. There's really no markings on it, although I really wish there were. Kind of like Microtech does. I think it's just cool. We should have something on there, but a lot of the Sebenza guys like that. They don't like this, nor do I. Made in Idaho. Idaho made? What? Why do we have to put that on the titanium handle? No. Gay. That should be omitted. Totally. Steel, blade shape. Oh, steel I don't really talk about. It's just like S30V, slight improvement. In cutting tests, I don't notice a difference. Cardboard cutting with S30V, S35, I can't tell a difference. Highly rust resistant, capable of taking a fine edge. It's a crucible metal. You know, we've talked about that on camera a lot. I'm not going to spend airtime on it now. Very consistent, fine grain structure. CPM 35 is outstanding. It's a great steel and it's appropriate for this price level. But wait, Nutnfancy, there's a lot of knives that use that steel. There are a lot less. I know. We'll talk about that, trust me. On we go to speed. Feature length, baby, feature length. Here comes a criticism. It is fast, but there are a lot of knives that are faster than this particular Sebenza 21. Actually, not just this particular one, because I examined 5 of them recently to see if the speeds are any better. See that? There you go. I just got to make a dedicated thumb press to it. I'm going to show you, I won't do it now. I'm going to show you competitive options, some ones that come out much faster than that. And yes, it's disappointing. This thing should leap out of the handle. There's Benchmates that I just think about deploying it. I just do a light flick and the thing comes out, whack. Sebenza doesn't do that. We'll adjust the pivot point, Nutnfancy. Oh, I did. This, I'll get to this now because we're talking about speed and shortly lockup and strength. The pivot point and how it's executed by the CRK Sebenza is outstanding. A consistent pressure, double tension pivot point, meaning that you can crank these down and you're not changing your blade centering. It's always going to center the blade. So you can't really adjust the centering with that, and that's the way I like it. I wish all folding knives were that way. I really do. Crank it down, done. Easy to take apart, easy to disassemble, and actually Chris Reeve encourages it for knife maintenance over the years. They have no issues with it. In fact, in the box included is a hex wrench. Not that that's special. It isn't. I mean, we get them in everything, but just kind of say, yeah, go ahead and take your knife apart and clean it if you want to. We're talking about speed, though. I would call it good. Maybe excellent, but you got to put in a good thumb burst in there. Can I shake it out on handle? Kind of. I have to do that off camera because I have room in front of the camera. I didn't get a saw lockup on that. I think also hampering the speed a little bit, and you know I don't do groupthink, dudes, is that thumbstud, and it has volcano issues. In fact, I couldn't represent volcano issues better than this thumbstud. It looks just like a volcano, and it does not provide ultimate traction. Well, Nutnfancy, I have a Sebenza. I've never had a problem with it. Well, take it from me, a tactical knife guy of the first order. There's better thumbstuds. I'm not saying you can't get in there, but you got to really push your thumb in, otherwise you're going to get some slippage. I know, because I've been playing with this knife a lot over the years. Just by way of representation, what will I go with? How about this? The $33 Kershaw 1555 Cryo. It's a frame lock too. Look at those thumb studs. Ambidextrous too. Perfect. Not a great deployment, but get the picture. No volcano issues. And that's important when we're talking about a folding knife, because that thumb stud is how you're deploying this knife. It's got no flipper on it. It's thumb stud. And it's not ambidextrous. At least at first blush. It's not. I was thinking you could swap it over. I don't even think you can do that. Okay. Speed we talked about. Lockup and strength. Here, see, I'm trying to flip it out. I'm not trying to do that either. It's just how it happens. I would say the strength is good, maybe excellent, but not outstanding, and I remain unconvinced about the superiority of frame locks. I do. I'd rather have a captured liner lock. Oh, there's a deployment for you, like the Microtech SOCOM. That's a captured liner lock. I don't have to worry about over-rotating the lock bar and bending it. By the way, this does not have a stabilizer on it, a Hinder type stabilizer. So you'll notice sometimes when I actuate, I do this to catch it so I'm not hyperextending the lock bar. Yeah, because I'm taking care of the knife. Strength-wise, though, I can make any frame lock fail in simple testing. So the whole group thing is frame lock, man, it's superior. It's not. Not that I've seen. I've seen multiple frame locks fail. Now I'm talking about batoning or something that will actually transfer shock from the blade tang rear to the lock bar, which incidentally does not have a steel insert on it. So you're locking with that titanium. Now there's other outstanding knives that do that too. I'm going to show you in competitive offerings. I don't dig this method. I don't. I want a replaceable steel insert, and that kind of goes back to what I said, where it is a classic design that's been updated slightly, but not a ton. They really should put an insert on that. A replaceable, user replaceable insert. That way if you do jack it up and you get some lock shake down the road, you can just say, hey, CRK, send me an insert, screw it on, done. Maybe you restore the tightness of your integral lock by Chris Reeve. I would say good strength. For all the philosophies of use I've indicated to include tactical, I think it's more than adequate. This ain't a survival knife. It's not one you want to go batoning with. It's not one you want to go abusing. If you use it realistically, I think the frame lock in this knife will last forever. You can see the engagement right there. About halfway, some accounting for wear. There's a phosphor bronze bushings there, you can see, at the pivot point. But no, frame lock is not the ultimate in strength for me. That's just whether you're talking about Sebenza or whatever. I do like titanium, but titanium is not the perfect material either. Speaking of which, let's take a look at that handle. My understanding in the Sebenza 21, now they run a chamfer all around it instead of being rounded in its predecessor, the classic. So it's just chamfered at a 45-degree angle. It's cool. It's comfortable in hand. It doesn't have any sharp edges that I can find. The handle itself is ergonomic. Forward, reverse grip, absolutely. Has a slight taper to it in the middle of the handle. I think that's good looking and it's aesthetic, and a lot of other knife makers have copied it. Kind of a tapering coffin shape right here. I've reviewed a couple. What do you know? Jimping on the Sebenza 21. And I'll tell you what, the jimping on this sucker is perfection. It is sharp, but it doesn't tear your hands up. It's just ideal. On a raised thumb ramp, that's what you're going to get from your Sebenza. Ideal jimping. There's a CR logo. I do like that. That's very cool. Blue-coated thumb stud aesthetically. I forgot to mention this on the blade, though. The rounded spine. That is a nice touch. Again, a lot of other knife manufacturers have copied that and rounded it. Maybe not so great for fire steel because you don't have that sharp edge for flint. But for comfort and pocket, just aesthetics, perfect. Notice the construction of the titanium handle. Simple pillar construction. Probably my overall favorite way of putting knife slabs together. It's simple. It's just lightweight. You don't need any steel liners, of course, in this one. They got big old hex screws holding those in. They're domed. They're not flush mounted. Locking from both sides. Easy to take apart. And these are screws you don't have to worry about stripping out like you would on a lot of overseas knives. You unscrew those and it might be a one-way trip, bro. Then you're done. I love the titanium handles. I think they provide traction too, as they are bead blasted, and that lends to the philosophy of use of tactical. We got jimping, and we have what I consider to be moderate traction bead blasting. Even when your hands are a little bit damp, you'll get traction out of the slabs. Is it perfect? Nope. It's not. It's better with G10, which only makes sense, doesn't it? Really high traction G10. Like I said in the SR1 review, if we really want high traction, we'll just jump the hell out of the knife and make it high traction G10. Done. How's that for traction? Cool. How's that for ergonomics and coolness and value? Maybe not so cool. Okay, ergonomics are excellent. I'll give a ding to that thumb stud. I'm sticking with it. Clip design. Sebenza. Pretty squared away. I wish it held a little bit tighter. My mileage. Carrying this Sebenza in pocket, I find that it clips rather loosely. Hey, Nutnfancy, unscrew the clip and put some more tension on it. Should I have to with a $410 knife? No. Shouldn't. That being said, it carries adequately deep. Has a little funky undulation right here. Okay. Will accommodate thick tactical pant fabric. It's bead blasted too, made of titanium as well. It matches perfectly aesthetically. It's a good clip. Notice how it's recessed into the handle. That's a nice attention to detail. And it's got a big old screw on it. And notice because it's recessed, they can get away with one screw. It's not going to rotate because it's Frenched into that handle. One big hex screw to mount it into that titanium slab. That's a pretty strong mount, I think. There's your lanyard insert, blue titanium. It'll go in there and hold your lanyard. I like running it. I like how it makes that lanyard flow just straight back. A lot of guys will take it out and they'll just run it right through that hole. Totally doable. Nice attention to detail. Blued spacer between there. Durability. I think as long as you use your Sebenza knife, specifically the 21, because that's what we're talking about, realistically, it'll last forever. They have a great service from what I understand, so you can send it back to CRK And even if you've dicked it up, you can't put it back together, put all the parts in the box, send it back to them. They'll reassemble it, clean it, finish it, sharpen it. I think sometimes they charge for that, which in my mind they shouldn't. Not for a knife of this price. It should be lifetime service. Free. Benchmade does sharpening, and what do they charge? Just $5 or something like that. But I think durability will be outstanding. Now, if you go batoning with this, spine whacking with this, I think you're going to be disappointed. I think you're going to find some issues. You're going to say, what? But it's not marketed that way. It's not marketed as an all-around survival tool. It's marketed as a tactical folder, and a tactical folder is carried much, used little, to be honest. It's a life-saving tool, and I think the Sebenza absolutely would fill that role. Let's look at some competitive offerings. Oh, this is going to be fun. I already showed you it several times during this video, which, by the way, this is just a fun video. How about this? Again, Microtech SOCOM. Now, they're changing the version. The new version is actually even cooler than this one in some ways. Not so much in price. I already checked it out. It's like machined G10. They changed the lock. It's a very cool knife. They changed pretty much everything on the SOCOM, but they slapped, I think, another $150 onto the price tag. So maybe it's right up there with the Sebenza. We're talking about durability, though, and I think this would be every bit as durable, if not more durable than the Sebenza 21, and this version was a lot less than that one. What, 125 less? That's substantial. Every bit as capable. Let's look at the sizing between the SOCOM and the Sebenza. Pretty similar. A little bit more length with the Microtech SOCOM. This version produced in February 2012, CF inserts. Price-wise, though, I mean, yeah, this is still an HEC knife. It's still an expensive knife. And everything I said about the Sebenza, you could apply to Microtech. Let's be honest, you totally could. Say, well, you know, is that worth that much money? I don't know. Maybe not. You know, because utility-wise, does this perform like better than a $100 knife? Probably not. As long as you raise a second kind of cool flag and say, hey, I love it just because I love it. That's fair game. But I'll say this in the defense of the Microtech SOCOM is very few knives achieve what this knife does at its weight. The strength, blade size, blade steel, sharpness, penetration, blade to handle ratio, and weight of 4 ounces. I think it's less than that. It's like, actually, I forget, like 4.42 on it. That's an amazing achievement. It is a competitor against the Sebenza. Let's be honest. How about this one? I reviewed it in 2008. One of my first HEC knives, basically. I still own it. Had to go looking for it. Oh! The Bradley Alias. This is an expensive knife, but it's about half the price of the Sebenza 21. At least it was when I bought it way back when. $190. This is a Bradley Alias 1 in gray bead blasted titanium as put together by Benchmade. Which one would you prefer between that and the Sebenza 21, Nutnfancy? What's my criteria? Price no object, Sebenza. Did I surprise you with that? Remember what I said about the blade. I was raving about that blade, wasn't I? I do love the Bradley Alias blade. I like this one better. How it works, how it looks. Jimping is good, not as good as the Sebenza. The handles, the aesthetics, everything else, pretty much the same. I like the clip better on the Sebenza. I don't like that phallic looking polished clip on the freaking Bradley Alias. Deployment speed on the Alias is superior to this knife. Superior. Just comes out fast. Solid lockup, same durability as the Sebenza. If you guys love everything about the Sebenza, look at the Bradley Alias. Just like I said in the review way back when, it's about the same as capabilities. It's a sports car for less. It really is. That's why I reviewed the Alias early on in TMP, because of that. What a knife that is. Good looking blade. Good look. It's flat ground from this portion. It has a better thumb stud, which I believe is reversible. Totally take it out, throw it on the other side. No, it's not a true lefty knife because it's scalloped right there for deployment. Man, this is fun. How about this? Another titanium frame lock. Spyderco Sage, come on down. Square off with the Sebenza 21. Maybe we should have the small Sebenza going up against this one, but this is all I got, so you guys can get the picture. Now, the Sage is not a cheap knife. I told you Spyderco charges a lot for their blades sometimes. This is a good example. This is a C123 Ti S30V steel, 3.6 ounces. It's much lighter, $185 is this knife. It's a Hall of Famer here in TMP. Hall of Famer, even at $185. It's less than half the price of this knife. Has a better thumb ramp. It has top and bottom jimping. In some ways, it has a little bit different philosophy of use because it's a smaller blade. Like I said, maybe we should compare it against the small Sebenza. That would be a better comparison. But if you're going to say, hey, Nutnfancy, you're stuck with the small Sebenza or the Sage Titanium, which one do you choose for the rest of your life? Probably the Sage. Look at that wire clip, dudes. Carries deep, tough pillar construction. Same material as a Sebenza, 6.4 ALV. Or 6ALV4, I get it all confused. Let me say it right. 6AL4V titanium. Rounded corners. Nice and ergonomic, fast. Look at the speed on this thing. No stabilizer bar on this one either, so you got to be careful you don't hyperextend that lock. This is actually an homage to Chris Reeve. This is an integral lock homage to this knife. It's a collaboration with CR, man. Speed. Oh, dudes, that comes out so fast. That's fast deployment. Faster than Sebenza. That's a Sage. I absolutely love this knife. Love it, love it, love it, love it. How about this? Kershaw Scamp. Why do you bring that in front of the camera, Nutnfancy? Well, for a couple reasons. One, to show you what a lot of the Sebenza critics will tell you. And they're right. That I can get the same cutting performance, talking first kind of cool, with this knife, the Scamp, at $22 or whatever it is, made in China, 8CR13 MOV steel, that I can in a Sebenza. You can't make an argument on basis of first kind of cool. You just can't. You don't have a leg to stand on. The answer is yes. You can. It'll have the same cutting performance, more or less. Well, 8CR13, it won't hold edges long. I know that. It'll rust on you. I know that. But we're talking about, let's say it's a carpet layer. He's a contractor. He's cutting carpet all day long. Let's say you give him a Sebenza. He doesn't know anything about knives. You give him a Sebenza, you give him a Scamp, a 2710 from Kershaw, and you say, hey, go out. I'll talk to you in a week. Tell me which one you like better. Chances are he's going to come back and say, I like this one better. Ergonomically, it's a better knife. Has jimping, rounded corners, all that stuff. I mean, I added skateboard tape to this. But if you say, hey, about cutting performance, he probably won't know too much of a difference. He may say, well, this blade you gave me, it lasts a little bit longer. It did go dull. This one I like too. That's my guess. Having used a lot of Kershaw Chinese-produced knives with 8CR13 MOV steel, it's a lot of knife for the money. How many of these could you buy for one Sebenza? You could basically have an entire collection of Kershaw blades, of all the cool high-value Kershaws I made, for the price of one Sebenza. That's first kind of cool I'm talking. Second kind of cool, the image, the commodity, the admiration philosophy of use. I should say philosophies of use. Does this one have it? Absolutely not. I said that. But this is still a frame lock. It's a stainless steel frame lock. G10 on that side. It's a handsome looking blade. I think it's an interesting comparison. Here comes another one. I already showed you this one, the Kershaw Cryo. New for 2012, at least when it's coming out. Hinder design. That has a stabilizer bar on it. And it's a $33 knife. Stainless steel frame. Has a flipper option on it and a thumb option. And it's assisted. This is a great knife. It's heavy. Way heavy for what it is. I think it's like 4.8 ounces. Now it's a different category, but I'm showing you this by way of contrast to what the Sebenza critics say in the realm of first kind of cool, and they are correct. Well, the Sebenza, it's the best knife in the world. Nothing achieves its fit and finish. Nothing can come close to its quality levels. That's bull. That's bull. I mean, it's just not true, dudes. I mean, here we go with a overseas produced Boker Titan Plus, reviewed here in the Nutnfancy project. A titanium knife, overseas produced. That's why it's affordable. Lock back. Different in a lot of ways. The steel sucks compared to the Sebenza, but for most knife guys, they'll probably be pretty happy with it. Reviewed. It's not true. If you say, oh yeah, it just blows everything away and first kind of cool, and I just don't buy it. It's just not true. There's so many outstanding knives out there. I'm showing them to you right now. How about the Kershaw, just because it's hanging around? 0350, zero tolerance. It's a much heavier knife. I think it's like 5.6 ounces. This thing's tough though. All the ZT knives are tough. So if you want maximum performance, if you're saying, hey, Nutnfancy, you're going to go doing some hard cutting, you're going to be hacking with a blade through various materials, what knife would you want between these two? I'd take this. Again, we go with a captured liner lock. That's a thick liner lock on this 0350. That's a sick blade, dudes. Is it as light and as cool as the other one? I don't know. It's in the eye of the beholder. Great jimping. Has a different blade shape altogether. Another option. I'll wrap it up. So if you make the case on the basis of first kind of cool, the Sebenza by Chris Reeve is the best in 2012 and beyond tactical folding knife in the world, I don't think you have a leg to stand on. You don't, because there's others, which I've just shown you in front of the camera, that will meet and exceed several of its performance attributes. You're talking a thumbstud, you're talking speed, maybe, usually. First kind of cool, you say, I just love it. It's awesome. It turns me on. I like the history, the admiration factor of a Sebenza knife. Then that's off limits. I say hats off to you. I salute you for it. And therein is where maybe some Sebenza owners will get a little bit confused, as they'll say, well, it's the best tactical folding knife in the world. You just don't understand. You don't own one. Till you own one, you won't know. Till you use one, you won't know. There is some truth to that. I mean, the Sebenza is an amazing knife. And honestly, if this thing bucked out at like $1.75, you'd see my likability scale on this knife screaming. You would. I mean, the really only fault I can give it is not absolute speed and the thumb stud. That's it. Everything else is completely perfected and squared away in the Sebenza 21. But it's like that in a lot of knives, to be honest with you, that are cheaper. Just as cool. It is. It is a capable knife in the philosophies of use I'm talking about. EDC, tactical. I don't really say hunting, because who would want to take their Sebenza hunting? I wouldn't do it. It's capable. It's got good belly. Sharp tip will probably penetrate the intestines while you're skinning out. There's a lot better knives for that. Tactical EDC is where it boils down to. You know, is it perfect? No. Very few knives are perfect. There are some outstanding Chinese unlicensed copies of the Sebenza, and they provide, I got to be honest, pretty much all the utility of a Sebenza. They do. Is it right? No. But then again, Sebenza has created something that lends itself to copycats, and that is, it is an amazing reputation. It is popular and storied in its history. And when the price stays up there, never coming down as part of protecting the brand, the image. Let me get this out of the way. It's Sebenza's moment to shine. That's good for owners of the Sebenza. It's good for the brand. However, it opens yourself up to copycats. And they'll say, well, there's a lot of pent-up demand for this $400 knife. What about if I make it for $100? See what I'm saying? Finally, I think I've already established the knife itself is extremely well designed. It's extremely capable. I'm pretty much in love with the knife overall, despite the criticisms. I am not in love with the price. I think it's too expensive. But Nutnfancy, it's brand, it's image, I know. But for me, it just doesn't float my boat. If it did, you would have seen a review back in 2008, back in 2009. I just can't bring myself to do it. I do this review for the service of my subscribers. And it's interesting. It's interesting to see the iconic, the legendary Sebenza in front of the TMP camera for reference as we compare and contrast it. If someone, one of these days I do a gear check on you guys and you pull out a Sebenza 21, I ain't going to criticize you for it. I'll say, rock on, dude. Rock on. Because there's a smile on your face, and that gets the second kind of cool, and that is you enjoy it. And that, after all, is the bottom line on knives. Whether it's a Bradley Alias or a Sebenza, you enjoy it. And that, in the end, is really what matters. Life is too short, man. Go buy a new knife. Enjoy your life. And it might be even the Chris Reeve Sebenza. That is a feature-length Nutnfancy review. No stops, no retakes. See ya.